This podcast is the sole property of Proud Sports. Our thoughts and opinions are our own.
They say I walk like a king, talk like a king. You can act around now, say the same thing. They chasing the fame, they all want the name. But they ain't got what's running through these veins. Say I walk like a king, talk like a king. You can act around now, say the same thing. They chasing the fame, they all want the name. But they ain't got what's running through these veins. Make way for the king.
Welcome. It's another Proud Panthers podcast, and I am Steven. Follow along with me on X at StevenBackPS. Also, this podcast at Proud Panthers on X. That's where you'll see all information all the time about Hyde University basketball, and that's what this podcast is focused on as well. As our Panthers team last night unfortunately dropped to 7-2 inside the Cobain Center against the Southern Illinois Salukis. A tough game, a tough outcome for our High Point team. We're going to dive in to breaking down some of the how. We're going to go into trying to figure a couple of things out that I noticed. And then I've got a bit of a complaint, to be honest with you. And so all of that is coming up here on the Proud Panthers podcast.
High Point University, the premier life skills university, is ranked the #1 best-run college in America by the Princeton Review. Employers value HPU's real-world preparation. Students love unprecedented access to global leaders on High Point's inspiring campus. And parents appreciate HPU's God, family, and country values. Choose to be extraordinary at High Point University.
High Point University head basketball coach Flynn Clayman joining us, coming off of an 86-84 loss with a layup at the final waning seconds. What was your message to the team after this one?
Well, first of all, I got to give SIU a ton of credit. I mean, they beat us. We can look at a lot of things that we could have done to do better, but that's a good Missouri Valley team that came in here and just made more plays than us and got it done. So first of all, credit them. I mean, it's a huge win for them. My message to our guys was just you can't let it come down to that one possession situation with the controllables that we missed to start the second half. It was an immature start to the second half. We gave daylight to a team that was close to hanging it up, and the minute they felt that, they got hot, and they had their best shooting night of the season. They're the worst shooting team in the country. They make 10 threes. And, I've seen it before. When you give a team that confidence, they start making them. And we'll get it fixed. Those guys they're the good guys in that locker room, but they're human beings. They slipped up a little bit today, but they'll bounce back.
What do you feel like was the main difference between first and second half tonight?
I mean, you could just start with the deflections. I mean, we got 23 first half, 10 in the second. And I can guarantee the majority of those 10 came in that comeback period, So that team we just played is close to the better teams in the Big South. So that was a good experience against a quality, what would be a top-level Big South team that we'd see in March. And these guys know now, man, you just can't take those possessions off. You got to give it your all when you have a 12, 15, 17-point lead.
This is another one of those opportunities where our High Point team has a quick turnaround to another game here inside the Cobain Center on Friday night against NJIT. And I know there's so much to evaluate off of the game we just finished, but is it a good thing or a bad thing to have that type of quick turnaround for these guys after such a tough outcome?
I think it's probably a good thing. I'd like to really get down into some of the issues that happened today, but the thing is we know the issues and our guys know the issues, and they'll fix them. The question is, if we win 3 or 4 more in a row and we win them well, are they going to forget them again? I hope we don't. I think we got the right kind of character to not do that again.
I have one final question for you, and that's about Terry Anderson. I know he had a great overall game for him. He being a great leader on this team, I also realize that for him, I've seen it time and time again, he just really wants success for the whole team. Do you feel like all the adversity, all the challenges that I and you both know he's been through, that's something that maybe a guy like that inside the locker room could share that after tonight's game?
Terry is an interesting one because when you look at that film to start that second half, he was a lot of the problem. But you know what? There was a lot of guys out there that should dominate that game that were part of the problem. He wasn't the only one. And then we kind of all picked it up together. Now, overall, I'm very proud of Terry. I'm very happy he's on my side. And he's right in that boat of, okay, are we going to get mature enough to do something truly special? Or are we going to be a team that's very good but has these kind of slip-ups? And it's got to kind of start with him, honestly, because for the reasons you brought him up are the reasons that other guys on the team look up to him. And we've got a couple other guys who are struggling a little bit that I believe will get going. But overall, Terry had a good night, but he's going to see that there's a lot of controllable things to start that second half that we let slip that we just can't.
Well, you know that I have the utmost respect for you, Coach. I appreciate you taking the time with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Go Panthers.
Back here on the Proud Panthers podcast. And those were the words post-game with head coach Flynn Clayman as High Point fell in a tough loss at home to the Southern Illinois Salukis 86-84 on Wednesday night. And if you wanted instant reaction from that game, or maybe you're looking for instant reaction and getting a part of the conversation, your thoughts, your take, your questions, then we encourage that. After each and every game, we have a Proud Live that we do. And last night we did much the same, where a lot of my instant thoughts were shared. So I encourage folks to go back and definitely revisit that. And I, at that time, said much the same as what I'll start with here, and that is I appreciate Coach Clayman being giving of his time after a game where the outcome is definitely not what was desired. And it's never an easy thing for coaches and players, and it definitely wasn't even necessarily easy for me because we all desired a different result. But now that we know that that is what we got, and I've had some more time to chew on things, I really feel like this game, the how we got to a loss that shouldn't have happened, is pretty evident and clear. What I hesitate to address are the things that are knee-jerk, that create a mindset based off of one result that people immediately run to sometimes. I think we all have to be careful with that. One of those things we're going to get to later, but I'll just use it as an example, and that is I can tell you that the staff, they're trying some things. They're willing to risk and do some decisions now in the non-conference and earlier in the season to kind of see what they have later down the road in conference, in games that may, you could say, have more meaning because of what it's tied to for the long game. So I just want us to kind of be careful with knee-jerk reactions. But last night, I still feel as if Southern Illinois pushed their chips to the middle of the table for this game. They, I know, came in as underdogs. They came in, if we really think back, same coaching staff, but they came in as a team that allowed our High Point Panthers to visit their home floor and really beat them up pretty bad. It was a double-digit loss for the Salukis last year in Illinois. So there's a bit of a chip there that, like, hey, we gotta return serve. And from the style of their play, I again feel as if the thought process was, let's do what it is required of us to give our best chances of pulling an upset. This shooting from a team that is not good at shooting three-pointers is crazy. There's not a better way really necessarily to put it. It's an outlier. Coming into the game, the Salukis ranked third worst in the nation beyond the three-point arc, 24.46% shooting. Last night, in order to win by 2 on a last-second lay-in before really at the buzzer, and I know they put 0.4 seconds back on the clock, but that's really nothing. It required them to come out and shoot 45.5% three-point shooting. So almost, not quite, but almost doubled what they normally would shoot. That's going to be one piece of the recipe if you're looking to go on an opposing team's floor and pull an upset. That's one of the components. The other component that is clear to me is that there was an impassioned play from the players on the floor that their team had in a 12-minute to 15-minute stretch in the second half that simply our team did not show. And those two opposites coming at the same time resulted in High Point, our team, being down by as many as, I know at one point it was 7, but the Salukis' largest lead was 9 with 7:56 left to go in the game. That's how we got there. And to dive deeper into that, you could say, well, there were times where the defense let up certain shots, let up those three-point looks. Yeah, sure, there were open looks. I wouldn't disagree with that. But I think that immediately goes back to the two things that I just mentioned as part of this recipe that the Salukis brought in with them last night. Well, they're not known for shooting three-pointers. Let's pack the lane. Let's keep them from doing what they're good at doing. That bit us in the foot a little bit last night. Or at the same time, will they get some open looks? Because if we're not taking each and every possession with the utmost respect and attention, and that's on both ends. A lot of people confuse that sometimes. They'll say, you can't take possessions for granted. And that saying generally goes along with the offensive side, which is a part for certain. But I also think it can apply to your defensive end as well. If you take those possessions for granted, it just means that, well, you kind of let somebody do what they want to do. You sit back and you just kind of let it all play out and happen. And so that goes back to that impassioned play part of it that Southern Illinois showcased. And for whatever reason, in that second half, our High Point players came out flat. And that was the other part to this, that there is no mistake. And you heard Coach Clayman even address it. When they go back and watch the film, I know he was personally mentioning Terry because I asked specifically about Terry and his leadership on this team. But it applied to, again, Terry, it applied to Conrad, it applied to Rob, it applied to Owen, it applied to Chase, and I could just go on down the list. Cam, all these guys had minutes in this stretch. They were a part of the problem, and they'll see it on the film that something was different, something was up there. After sitting and chewing and thinking a bit about the game, there was outliers that, like I said, ordinarily wouldn't happen. I mentioned actually one of these with our Proud Live that you could go back and take a look at on X and also on YouTube. But I'll mention it again here too, because this is just a perfect example of some of the things that you just wouldn't always expect. And it ended up being a part of this upset recipe that I keep referring to. But Davion Sykes is a player on the Salukis team. And last night, and I know a lot of people have gone back to Damian Mayo being pretty much the example of how many 3-point shots that he had hit coming into the game and how many he actually hit last night. And yes, that is, we stated that as a whole general team theme for Southern Illinois, that just was one of those things. But for me, Davion Sykes is another one of these crazy examples because he plays 15 minutes in the game. He's minus 13. He's really questionably somebody as to why you might wonder this guy is out on the floor this late in the game during this crucial moment. We're talking about 84-84 tie basketball game. High Point has the ball with 20 seconds on the clock. You got a minus 13 guy out there who's played 15 minutes. And at this point that I'm talking about in the game, he only had 1 point to his name. And that was off the free throw line where he was 50% at that. He didn't even knock out both of his shots. He hit one. As we had the unfortunate turnover and Conrad losing control of the ball, that's the guy that happens to score the winning basket, Davion Sykes. So it's just a recipe, outliers, things that I noticed after having some time to really sit and think about it. Now, it makes you wonder, though, what are some of the other things happening in and around that potentially? And what are some of the things that we really need to figure out? Because the best teams will utilize things like this as a learning lesson. It will actually impact them now that the season moves forward. I said it in two ways last night. I'll repeat here again because I firmly believe this, but no, the season doesn't stop with a loss to Southern Illinois, although coming into the game, coming into the season, it should have been a game, bing, 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 light bulbs going off as, hey, we really need to pay attention to this. But at the same time, I feel as if each and every game counts for the program to be the caliber that I desire for it to be. So I hope that our team is in the good team category. I know that the staff is in that category. I think that Coach Clayman, as you heard here on the Proud Panthers podcast, is hopeful that his guys in the locker room, and he said that there are guys that will do this, but he's hopeful and encouraged that they will see, hey, these are the mistakes that we made. Now we got to clean that up and we got to do something better the next time. So from my vantage point, a couple of those things. We have such a luxury, such a beautiful mind as our head coach. And I don't know that from just a very far out, distant observer, it would be necessarily noticed. This is really on a more deep basketball level. because I'll give you an example. I take my family to the games. So my wife and my daughters, are they really watching who's setting screens where? What is the time of the game, and what does the team really need to be trying to do to execute in this particular moment? No, they don't. Oh, that was a cool dunk. Ooh, that was a nice shot. Oh, those are cool flips the cheerleaders are doing, and all that's cool too. All that's great. That's part of the pageantry. That's part of the game. I love it. But you wouldn't notice these things necessarily if that's your jam. Part of my jam has been to watch our team at a very close level. And this started all the way back during the summer. And during that time, I would sit in a very quiet Quabain Center watching this team go through workouts and do different things. And some of the best and most coolest times was watching the team implement and run through some of the newer planned plays and action on the offensive side. To be able to see Coach Clayman drawing up, live calling different actions and plays is something that not everybody gets that luxury or that opportunity to see. Because during the game environment, things are loud, lots going on, things happening. It may not necessarily be the first thing you recognize or even think of. We have a head coach that is very talented when it comes to how he draws things up, his plans, the things that are happening up here in the brain. And last night, there were 2 times that we didn't take advantage of that. And I think that is going to be something that we have to learn from. We got to slow down, and we got to really take advantage of that. And that's really at the team, the guys in the locker room level to do it, because they've got the resources in the coach and the staff to do it. I'll give you the positive first as the example. And I've stated that I never like to blast out necessarily the plays and the mentality. But again, I also would say that if scouting reports are being constructed off of the Proud Panthers podcast, then please send over a check in the mail. Get me on your staff, because I must be some kind of basketball savant that I don't realize that I am. I'm just a guy, a fan that loves High Point basketball. During the second half, there was a play out of bounds underneath our basketball where it showcased perfectly what I'm trying to describe. And a lot of people would have just recognized it as, oh, that was a nice 3-point shot that we just made. They wouldn't recognize what went into that to get that result. There was a play drawn up for Scotty Washington from the top of the key 3-point line to knock down a straightaway 3-point shot. And it was called at the perfect time, with the perfect play call, with the perfect actions to make it happen. Now, where we didn't take advantage in a similar fashion was at the end of the first half and at the end of the game. I remember sitting, and if you want the receipts to go with it, then Stephen Beck PS on X. End of the half, we're dribbling out the ball. Coach Clayman has already sent in the play call of what he would like to see. Unfortunately, as the clock is going down, Conrad and Rob are dribbling the ball out. And again, none of this from me is to nitpick directly on Conrad and Rob in particular, because Conrad, at the end of the game, again, much similar circumstance. Play is drawn up, clock ticking down, 20 seconds on the game clock, tie ball game, 84-84. We've got the ball in our hands. This is exactly where we want it. Chance to win the game right here. What is happening at the end of the first half is similar to what happened at the end of the game. At the end of the first half, we never got a shot off. Now, I credit the Salukis and Scott Nagy because I think that he is a good coach. I think he's prepared, and so they made a couple of defensive changes right there at the end to affect that. What it appeared to me, again, from just my general observation as a fan, was that they dropped to a, we'll say, extended zone. Had a couple of guys really pushing out beyond the three-point arc, while also kind of having three guys layering closer to the basket and the baseline and dropping into more of a zone that has some extension to it, where as Conrad and Rob are trying to figure out, okay, what direction are we going? Let's get guys in the right positions. Clock's ticking down. You can see even how I describe it, how sped up and how anxious that can feel. That's something that can be learned and that we can work on a little bit better to actually execute this kind of stuff. Guys still gelling, team still new. Who's taking the shot where? Who really is the guy in that moment? At the end of the game, like I said, similar circumstances. Clock's ticking down. We've got a play drawn up. It's right there in the wheelhouse of where we need it, with a head coach that I guarantee had something that he had planned for that moment. And unfortunately, like I said, it was a fumbled away basketball that bounced a certain way, and the Salukis get it. They go down the floor and they win the game. So I say that to say that would be one area of importance that I feel like we've got the tools right there at our fingertips. Now it's just implementing that with the team and the guys and understanding, okay, we got to do this. We got to change this. We got to alter this. And that doesn't mean you recreate the whole wheel here. Those are the knee-jerk reactions, right? The knee-jerk reaction is, oh, we throw out the baby with the bathwater. We got to completely change what we're doing because we just lost this game. I don't think so. That's more of an adjustment, more of a learned thing. We see the problem here. Okay, now we got to fix it. The defensive side, very much the same. Okay, the game plan, the scouting plan was to stack the zone, was to try to force the Salukis into utilizing a part of their game that ordinarily they don't want to go to and utilize. And so when that starts to fail, and then we start to actually play with the impassioned desire, and we get those 10 deflections in the second half that Coach Klayman probably knows much better than I do. He says that those are coming in that last stretch where finally guys are waking up to the fact that we're down 9 points. We got to do something. That's not a complete big shift of, man, our defense is horrific. We got to change everything and do something completely different. That means that the guys actually just have to execute it the way that we've been executing it game in and game out up until this point. We were forcing steals. We were forcing turnovers. We were getting out and springing those into fast break points on the other end. All of that was positive things from previous games. And I know that those are always things that you can continue to tweak, mold, and shape. Now, I've got two other things on this episode that I wanted to really try to get in here because I find that they're very interesting elements that could be looked at in a much deeper level, but I don't know how much time you can devote to this. And so I try to always keep that in my front windshield view. The first is that I feel as if, and I stated this towards the start of this episode, but I feel as if this staff, and I know this is the case actually, it's not a feel, I know that the staff is willing to do certain things in a game like last night to test and to find out and to research a little bit in the actual moment, as opposed to let's solely do this in practice, for instance. And one of those that I have already been clamoring about a little bit is trying to find a handful of guys or a guy that can be reliable on the back end when Cam Fletcher needs to sit and rest, when Owen needs to sit and rest, when Terry needs to sit and rest. Those are the guys right now that are picking up rebounds, scoring close to the basket, doing the jobs, if you will, that a big man would most likely be doing. Last night against the Salukis, it was J.I.'s opportunity to try to fill in that role and fill in that void. And in my opinion, I think it's right now up for grabs. Caden Miller, we've seen come in and get a couple of earlier opportunities the past couple of games prior to this one. Early in the season, it was more of Yusuf that was coming in and trying to fill that gap, that kind of be that stop gap. And I would emphasize, because rebounds have been, will continue to be something that our team realizes is not our best thing and advantageous to us at all times. We knew that coming into the season. Just go to proudsports.com and search through the articles of who's going to get the rebounds. I had a conversation with athletic director Dan Hauser back in the summer where we exchanged that same question, and I attempted to give some answers to it there and encourage folks to go back. And that was before any regular season game started. So this is not anything new. I just continue to say somebody's got to grab those reins. So it's more of an encouragement to J.I., to Caden Miller, or to Yusuf. Somebody has to realize and seize the opportunity that is at hand there, because we had questions on our live about Vincent Brady. And part of my answer with Vincent was, well, if you're out, if you're injured, if you've found yourself not being able to fill a position or be on the floor because of an injury, it would be very easy to lose a spot, to lose a space. And here's one that's gaping wide open. Everybody knows and realizes it needs to be filled, even the coaching staff. So last night, it's a test run. Here's J.I. Get him out there. Let's see if he can fill 4 or 5 spot. That maybe is a little bit harder for Yusuf and Caden. They're different players. I so far, out of all of those guys, could I pick a favorite? Yeah, I could pick a favorite. I don't think it necessarily matters because none of them are quite grasping that opportunity that I think is there, and also realizing this is what my role has to be. And that role isn't to go out and score 15 points. That role isn't to be the focus on those final second drawn-up plays that I just talked about a few minutes ago. Their job is to be in the right place on the offensive end to be able to help run those drawn-up plays. It is to be in the right spots and the right places on the defensive end, so we're not just giving up obvious looks and we're able to do an impassioned, gathered defensive effort. And the job is to grab as many rebounds as possible, block out, battle, get down there and do the mean mug type stuff that High Point fans understand. And speaking of the mean mug, Trey Benham was not some huge giant, but he still found ways to grab rebounds. So it doesn't require that it has to be even a big man to do it. The last thing here for today's episode, and this is probably the biggest for me out of all of it, because this is where I can actually speak with certainty, and I'll forever go to war on this one because it's the exact position that I'm in. And that is that I'm a fan, and I go to the games and I enjoy every single one of them inside the Cobain Center at home. I have for a long time. if you haven't heard the story, just real quick, my High Point University affiliation began as just a fan. I was in the age range of early high school, and I started going to my first High Point basketball games in the Millis Center with players like Danny Gathings, Jerry Ishaniqua, Akeem Scott, Zion White. I mean, those names are really only going to reverberate with people that have gone back a while. How about Stonehocker? That was another one. I love that name as a basketball guy. And so that's where my affiliation developed. And really, ultimately, that's why I desired to attend High Point as a student. It wasn't all the amenities that came along with it, which are great, and they've only grown since I was there. But it really was just because I was a fan. I was impassioned, and that's what you want. When the fight song plays and you're a student and you realize, hey, this is my alma mater. This is my school. Yeah, you stand up for the fight song. You clap along with it. I know that's small, and that could be a little bit cheeky, but at the same time, that's what it's all about. And I stated this in the live a little bit as well, that the student population at our High Point University has seen a team that went to the NCAA tournament. And that drew a lot of national recognition, a lot of attention. And now all of a sudden, High Point is competing with SEC branded style schools because we actually have an athletics event that is exciting. We don't have Saturday tailgated football. We got basketball. We're a basketball school. And I am just so disappointed that with the student population on campus, we're not talking about Christmas break. I can understand Christmas break. I know the dynamics. I know the demographics of our High Point student population. Majority from far away. They're not within the North Carolina borders a lot of times. And so they can't be there for a game over Christmas break. And that's not what this was last night against Southern Illinois. This was a game that it doesn't take a genius person to understand that we're playing a heritage style mid-major opponent who's been to NCAA tournaments and is an opponent that would be a good resume team to beat. And we're a team coming in that only has one loss. We're a team coming in that has only lost 4 times over the past 3 seasons inside that building. 16-2 in the 23-24 season, 16-1 in the 24-25 season, now 4-1 so far this year. Why we don't have students packed in, swinging from the rafters to try to get into that venue last night to see this team play, and it was a stale environment for such a matchup, is mind-boggling to me. And I'll tell you somebody that gets it. Oakland head coach Greg Campy, he gets it.
And it's after 42 years and all that we've been through, I can say this. Our student section is terrible. And you don't like it, too bad, because ESPN called our student section the best in the country. Best mid-major student section in the country. And where are they? You watched us go to Purdue and play the way we played. You watched us play Houston. You watched us go to Central Florida and be a one-possession game in the last minute. You see we're scoring 100 points a game. You're seeing dunks and great plays, and you got a point guard that's unbelievable. Where are you? I'm pretty upset about that. Other than that, I mean, Jared Calhoun, the coach that was at Youngstown, is now at Utah State. He told me 3 years ago, he goes, we're just trying to be like you guys.
So that's Greg Campy, Oakland University head coach. And honestly, I don't necessarily think that the head coach has anything much that they should be focused on with that topic. I always appreciate head coaches acknowledging that the fans and the people attending the games can really uplift and help the team on the floor. momentum is a really interesting thing, and it's big for basketball, really big at the college basketball level. And home court advantage for High Point with the stats that I just gave you is clearly big. Insane. Why? Why not be there? Very frustrating and really sad and disappointing, and whatever other ways that you want to put it, it just makes no sense to me. Greg Campy says his student section's bad. I would have said our student section last night, that wasn't bad, but it was just sad. Because I know that right now there's nothing that is truly keeping the students like being home for Christmas from being there. Now, if they're at home, understood, got it. It's a game over the Christmas break. We need to get community tickets out there. We need to flood everybody in here. There's two other things to this. Our first exhibition game for this season, I recall the university making the decision to not open it up for a lot of different reasons, but not open it up to a public style venue, but to allow Panther Club members and students to really enjoy, fill the space, exclusivity for that. Then on top of it, I also have been to UNC Wilmington for an exhibition game as well, as we played them to start this season, and their students, they were there and they were loud. And the other community, rest of the members of that population of Wilmington, North Carolina, yeah, there were a few there. There were a lot of, I just remember a lot of families with small kids, but it wasn't like that they were packing it in and out of there. It was really the students that was making the noise and bringing the action, to which last night on social media, I saw much the same from Wilmington as they beat Marshall. And meanwhile, our students, not all, but generally speaking, just the amount of space, the amount of seats open that they could have filled and overflowed, because I've seen them do it in the Big South tournament when High Point was the host. So a lot there that I would be happy to argue and go to bat with, because I just honestly feel like we could be better, when we could do better as fans. And because I can carry that torch, I'm willing to take a pretty firm stance on it. We got another matchup inside the Cobain Center, one that I do hope more fans attend because it's on a Friday night, and it's against NJIT, who is out of the America East Conference. So far this season, they're 3-6, and their coach is in his third year with them. Honestly, not a very good team, not scoring the ball very well, having a hard time being up-tempo, setting up for an opportunity for us to really get back on track, do the things that we've shown earlier in the season, and make it happen against the New Jersey Institute of Technology. So after that game, join us on Proud Live with your conversation, your thoughts, your feelings. And also Saturday morning, join me on WSJS in the Triad, WSJS.com. Various signals throughout High Point, Greensboro, Winston-Salem for Waking Up Proud, where after that game as well, we're going to be talking some High Point hoops there. And we'll have post-game thoughts from head coach Clayman. So take part in all that, and hopefully we'll catch you again here on the Proud Panthers podcast.
Make way for the king.